Good morning and welcome. My name is Dick Hartman. I'm on the planning board, and thank you for coming. And George Reservi cannot be here today. The booster shot got the better of him. So in his absence, I thought I would welcome you and just a brief introduction as to kind of the genesis of this whole process, economic development. And I think it was you have Lynn Bernot to thank for this. They're at the annual town meeting. They're in a report in June of 2020. You recall the letter that kind of challenged the town to take a look at economic development. The town has taken a serious look at affordable housing, had addressed some other issues, wastewater in particular, but where is economic development and what does that mean to us? So the planning board took that on in terms of planning. We had to get the support and buy-in from the select board, and we did. So that got us here. There was $60,000 appropriated for this study. I was on the selection committee. We had an RFP. We had 4 very qualified firms. Streetsense did indeed shine above them all, and they are here. They have some, Nero will explain and let them introduce themselves and explain their other work in the Commonwealth. But we're happy to have them, happy to have you here. We had one meeting this morning with some business owners, went very well. I can't stay for this, but I just thought I'd stick around and introduce. I see half a dozen people that were at the early meeting, including a select person and real people, Tim and of course Lynn. So thank you guys for taking interest and other residents. Thank you very much for taking interest in being back. So I think hopefully with your help we can build on that. We have 2 more meetings today after this. So I think you'll enjoy it.
Can I ask a question? Sure. I'm just curious who the select board representative to the planning committee is.
Oh, it's Matt Runyon. Is the liaison. He was at our meeting last night. And again, the only thing I'll add to this is that besides the kind of the tangible things that will come out of this, I think that one of the things that we hope will come out of this is that we do indeed look at perhaps a different approach to the way the town conducts business. From the leadership roles to the to committees to and on and on. Everybody's interaction, both from a business perspective, the volunteer organizations, leadership, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully we get a fresh look at a lot of different things. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Noor.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Noor. I'm the director with the Public Nonprofit Solutions team at Streetsense. I'm joined by Joe, our analyst on the team. We're both here to conduct the planning process for the town in developing the town's first ever economic development strategy, which is in many ways a very exciting move and a very needed and critical move, especially after the pandemic. And I want to just introduce our team at Streetsense. We're actually a collective of designers, architects, and planners, but we all come together to think about places that are commercial districts, downtowns, and we've done downtown revitalization work across the country, and we're very attuned to some of the industry trends that are occurring across markets. We hope to bring that perspective here to the town, looking at comparative districts to yours, in understanding where your opportunities lie in the market. We'll start with research and diagnostic. That's always important in our process before we even deliver a plan. It's not wise to develop a plan without it being rooted in the realities of the marketplace. So that's really what we're here to do first and foremost. And then we'll be developing your recovery or your economic development plan for the town after which, with input from stakeholders, obviously. We've worked with public sector clients across the country, so we also really understand what tools there are from a regulatory perspective, from for the public sector perspective, what towns, villages, cities can or cannot do, what's within their realm of control and ownership. And also, because of the work that we've done with private businesses, we know how to leverage partnerships with other sectors that may be in town as well. So more locally, I think Dick mentioned earlier our work in Massachusetts. We work across the country, but our work in Massachusetts most recently is with the Commonwealth in designing their rapid recovery program, which really was a economic recovery planning process that was brought to 124 different communities across town, and which is a very similar process that we're actually going to be using here in Orleans. Is really about diagnosing your issues and challenges, and then developing an actionable and a strategic plan that's based on all of the research in the first phase. We want to really just start at a baseline, make sure that everyone has a clear understanding of what we're hoping to do, what is economic development, and what is an economic development plan supposed to do. And economic development really is just about improving community well-being through a number of different tools, whether it be policy, programs that the town or its partners puts in place, as well as it might be also capital improvements, right? There's a number of things we can do in our physical environment that will help facilitate the attraction, retention, or expansion of businesses in town. So that's what we're really hoping to do, and to really foster a tax base that's healthy for the community, and that's also builds an inclusive economy for Orleans. Our process will take us through to the end of April, perhaps early May, and across these different months, we're right up here. We're like late December. We're in immersion and discovery. Our very first phase of work. Right, this is our first touch point with stakeholders in town. We had our site visit in the last 36 hours, exploring all of your commercial nodes and districts, understanding what your tenant mix is like, what's working, what isn't. So we have some idea of what we think the challenges and opportunities might be, but part of this process is also hearing from your lived experiences, whether as residents, business owners who we spoke to in the first focus group, and arts and cultural organizations in town, and other groups that are concerned about environmental conservation, architecture conservation, and things like that. So that's our first phase. We're going to get all of that input from stakeholders, root it in market research when we go back to our offices and do our due diligence or market potential, and then come back to you at the end of the diagnostic phase through a remote meeting with the planning board, but also with the general public, to just set the stage and align ourselves with this is what we've heard, and this is where we think we need to move forward and take steps in supporting economic development. So for this first phase, we're going to be looking at 4 different areas, and this will really shape our conversation today with all of you, is understanding where the challenges or opportunities might be in the physical environment, the customer base, administrative capacity, and business environment. So when we talk about physical environment, we're talking about both the public realm, what's owned by the town or managed by the town, the state, your roadways, your sidewalks, but also your private realm, so the buildings in your commercial districts and storefronts. In customer base, we're thinking about the customers that are residents in town, but also your visitors. Obviously, we acknowledge that this is a seasonal economy to a large extent, and the visitor customer base is a large share of customers in town. And then administrative capacity is what we term comprises of your regulatory framework and the processes that businesses and organizations in town have to go through to conduct business and to conduct activities, performances, events, as well as leadership. Who are the main stakeholders in town that have for many years been leading efforts, whether it be in forming cultural districts, in leading efforts for events, performances, and cultural events, or other business activities as well. With the business environment, and I would love to talk to this particular group about, is who are your anchors and destinations? What makes Orleans Orleans? What makes the Orleans Cultural District a cultural district? I think a few folks here in the room might have been part of that process of the formation of the cultural district, so we'd really love to hear from you why that even began, how did that get started, how has it evolved over the years, and so that will be part of our conversation. In the third phase, following Diagnostic, we'll produce a plan, and we like to make sure that the plan doesn't sit on a shelf. So we heard this morning from a few folks that were in attendance at the first focus groups that they really want to make sure that the select board is supportive of the plan and help move tasks forward, that folks, town staff are all on board on implementation of the strategy. So what we typically do when we produce an economic development plan is make sure it's actionable. We don't just say, do this, we say, how do you do this, compare it to other districts, root it in best practices and case studies across the nation and locally, and then also point you to specific sites and locations where it does make sense. I think the best economic development plans are place-based and have specific locations or clusters of activity to make sure that they're visible to business owners and to customers. So for today, I know we have about 90 minutes with all of you. We want to make sure we use that time wisely to talk about what's working first. So we start on a positive note. We want to know what you think the strengths and the assets are in town. And since this focus group is really about arts and culture in Orleans, we want to hear what the strengths and assets are in the creative economy and the creative sector primarily. And then we'll talk about the challenges and lessons learned. That might mean different things to different folks and organizations. That might be affordability of space to do the work that you do, to sell the goods that you sell. It might mean accessing the right kinds of customers, like selling online. It might mean a number of different things, and that's what we're here to uncover with you. And then we'll use the last section of the conversation to talk about your priorities. There's going to be 100 different ideas that will come out of all of the focus groups this morning and this afternoon. But we want to know what comes up on top of your list of that 100 different ideas. So that'll be the framework for our conversation today. You have maps in front of you. I think the ones over there have been scribbled on a little bit, but if you so feel like something needs to be put in writing on a map, those maps are available to you on the table, so feel free to come up. And if you need to move around, those seated in the back and move up front, feel free to move at any time during the session. I just do want to say as a house rule, if someone's speaking, that we reserve our comments until they're done and be respectful of everyone's time here today. So I want to get started with just brief introductions. I know this side of the room, there's a few people, familiar faces from the last focus group, so if you want to just quickly introduce yourselves, and then we'll have you folks that have joined us for the second session give a longer introduction as to why you're here and your relationship to town. So we'll start here.
Linda Rudd, Chairman of the Finance Committee. I've been on that in that capacity for 5 years, on the Finance Committee 5.5. I've lived in town for, well, I've been coming to town for 55 years. Who's counting? And formerly on the board of the Symphony and treasurer and art committee of that, but no longer in that role.
Hi, I'm Ellen Dickinson. I'm the chair of the board of the Cape Symphony. I've lived in town for 17 years. I have been a president of the board of Lower Cape Outreach and been treasurer of the Friends of Snow Library. So I've been involved in the town for a very long time and happy to be here.
Thank you.
I'm Louis Schramaski. I'm resident. We've owned property here for 20 years, but moved here permanently 2 years ago, down in South Chatham. I mean, our First House was South Carolina. We're in South Orleans now, right, right across from Pleasant Bay. But I love Orleans. Like I said earlier, we tell our grandkids it's always sunny in Orleans, and it is compared to Chatham. So anyway, I'm here just to understand what's going on and see if I can be of any help anyway.
Tim Sweeney, my wife and I own the Sparrow Gift Store on Main Street. I'm also on the Orleans Chamber Board, and for the purposes of this meeting, I'm a music performer and a big supporter of arts and entertainment in town.
Michael Herman. I'm an organic farmer in Orleans, and I'm on the select board.
I'm Gary Godin. Been a property owner in Orleans since 2010. We moved here permanently 2 years ago. I'm a member of the Orleans Improvement Association, an organization that helps develop the physical characteristics, contribute to the town and sort of physical improvements. I'm also a vice president of Nelson Newcomers, which is a big social organization that has hundreds of members from here in Orleans, and happy to be here.
My name's Debbie Oakes. I'm currently on the planning board and also the architectural review committee. In my former life, we moved here in 1993, for me with the goal to become involved in arts and culture, which I did first through the Community Foundation, which was actually located here in Orleans, and then as executive director of the Arts Foundation of Cape Cod. So at one time, I had a very deep and thorough knowledge of arts and culture on Cape Cod. However, I did move away for a time and then move back, and things have changed a bit. Locally, I have also been involved with the Community Partnership, which was the organization that started the Cultural District. It was on the design team that worked to do some community planning, physical planning. I currently work for an architect, Joy Cumming at Align Architecture, who unfortunately couldn't join us today. And the artist cottages are my baby.
Oh, great. You can start that way.
I'm Helen Addison. I have the Addison Art Gallery.
Hi, Tricia Connor. We've been coming to the Cape for about 50 years now. We've owned our home for 31, and we're happy to be here.
Retired executive, married to Tricia Connor.
Mary Little, longtime resident of Orleans.
Steve Gass, I'm chair of the Snow Library Board of Trustees, and my wife and I retired here to Orleans 6 years ago. We live off of Tonsett Road on Gibson Road. I'm also on the board of the Orleans Conservation Trust.
And I'm Tavi Prugno, the director of Snow Library. I've been in that position for 8 years and have worked at the library for 25 years, and I'm very interested in how the library can serve the community and the cultural aspects specifically of the community, Orleans community.
I'm Jack Sasso. I'm an amateur potter here in Orleans, and I'm Sue's husband. She'll take it from here.
I'm Sue Sasso. I've been coming here for 70 years. My family built in the 70s, and my husband and I moved here full-time in 2004. I am currently, I guess, titularly the director of the brand-new Galley West Art Gallery that we opened up on the grounds of the campus of the Church of the Holy Spirit, which was funded through CPC grants and fully restored this 1800s building. So if you haven't come, I just check it out just to look. But my reason for being here is twofold. One, there is a cultural district sign on the corner by our church, so I guess we're on the edge of the cultural district, which is kind of nice for the gallery. But secondly, as a potter, I would love to see some kind of an arts center restored in Orleans, where there are so many people who in retirement have developed artistic capabilities. We're seeing that this gallery is providing a venue for them to show and sell their work. But I would love to have a place where I could collaborate and be with fellow artists, not just potters, but all medium, And to do that, I have to go to the Creative Arts Center in Chatham, or I have to go out to Castle Hill in Truro, or I have to go down to Barnstable. And we're at the elbow, and we could draw from a lot of different places. So that's one of the things I was hoping to see for us. And for Jack, he might get his garage back, because right now it's my pottery studio. Our pottery studio, yeah.
Okay, and I'm Chris Harder. We built our house here in Orleans in 2002 and moved in permanently from Connecticut in 2015. My husband and I, we live off of Townsend Road on Lobster Lane. I'm representing the Center for Culture and History in Orleans, or also known as the Orleans Historical Society. And given that we just renovated our two main buildings, we're looking to find a way to bring that to the community and have it used more as a cultural center, or as something more than just exhibitions, which we are doing and are still popular, but we'd like to expand what we're doing, so that's why I'm here.
And how large is your space, sorry?
The meeting house is about, I don't know, 1,100 square feet, and the Heard Chapel is about 800 square feet.
Capacity? What's
Capacity in the meeting house is,
between the two?
yeah, is 80 and 40 in the Heard Chapel capacity, and it's only limited because of our septic design, the septic system design, and we're hoping with the sewers that those limitations will be bigger, larger, you know. So we'd love to have classes there, painting classes, or cooking classes, or things like that. So, which there isn't any place in town for that as much as we know. So we'd love to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Bill Weeble, longtime resident of both Orleans and Brewster, summered here from 1949, married in the Federated Church in '66, former principal at the middle school. I also sit on the Orleans Historic Commission, as well as representing the show.
So I think we should start with what's unique about Orleans arts and cultural scene, right? Every neighborhood, every community, every town claims to be the arts and cultural center of their region or of their metropolitan area, but there's always something unique about each one, whether it be the medium of art, the influence of the art and the period of the art, or culture, the different mix of ethnicity in some places that influences the arts and culture of the space. So as someone that's an outsider to Orleans, I would love for you to help me understand what's unique about Orleans' cultural district.
Joanna,
Hi, Joanna Kiwi, I'm chair of the Orleans Culture District.
I'm the entrance.
And I noticed that some of the brochures that we have by the door have all been picked up, but I have one that we put together that lists, maybe you've covered this because I'm late, I think. There are 46 individual cultural assets in Orleans. We've personally visited each one. And that includes galleries, museums, artist studios. Some of them are like at Rock Harbor Road. It's an individual studio but open to the public. And other what we think are aesthetically interesting points of interest, where an example would be Hidden Gem, which is a consignment shop, but she actually curates everything that's there. So sometimes there's local artists' work, you know, books, etc. COVID slowed us down a little bit. We have a walking map that is in process, but or we have a grant coming in January, and we'll work on that. I don't know if Bonnie's here or not. She signed up. We also have walking map for families that identifies all of the murals and public art, and it's a 30-minute walk around town. So that's also just waiting for this money to come in January.
Is that through Mass Cultural Council or?
That is through the Mass Cultural Council, correct. That's our only funding.
Okay.
Other than a couple of personal anonymous type donations. So we scramble like crazy, write a grant, hope that we get it, and then spend every penny.
In one sentence, how would you describe to a visitor who's new to Orleans about the arts and cultural scene here? What's the differentiator?
I feel that everything is walkable, and if anything, it would be something that I think is really unique to Orleans. It's not just a straight line, which is typical of the most commonly used comparison to Orleans. It's Chatham that has like one long main street, but those shops are closed in the winter primarily. So we're open year-round. We're year-round town. We're surrounded by water. You can buy a sandwich at any of the local restaurants or Whole Foods, walk within 5 minutes and be at Meadow on the Cove and have your lunch on a bench. And I would think that's what I think we should really work on, is the fact that this is a walkable town. There are areas for parking. We've put up some cultural district banners based on our logo, and other than the one that got totally mangled in the bomb cyclone at Rock Harbor, we're adding either 4 to 6 additional banners identifying, for example, the area near Kemp's Pottery, near the Rotary, and a couple of others identifying the Cable Museum, which is open in the summer primarily. So that's kind of what I think our job is, to collaborate with other organizations, which we've done with the Lighting of Orleans, collaborating with OIA. We collaborate with the Chamber. So our primary thing is to make, I think, the fact that Orleans is in itself a hidden gem. So our job, I think, is to connect all of those in some way.
I think, and we have some gallery owners here that maybe want to speak or maybe don't want to speak, but I think one of the unique things about Orleans is the number of really extraordinarily fine art galleries, some nationally known galleries, and that is an asset for the town, that we have all these successful businesses grounded in art, primarily two-dimensional art, I would say, although there are a number of posits as well. And that's a definite asset that we have to work with.
And a corollary to that, the craft shops with locally made nice things as well, kind of, as I say, a corollary to the art gallery. Like Left Bank and so on, and apologies for others that names just don't come right now.
I think there's maybe 3 things, if I can remember all 3. The first one, and it's going to sound like a Pollyanna thing, but the people here. I think the people in Orleans are smart. I think they're enthusiastic. I think that they're willing to participate, and I think that gives, it helps when you're trying to do something. So I'd say the people are an asset. The second thing is all of us are looking for funding, at least the nonprofits. So having the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, so engaged and involved in the community. Without the CPC, the Historical Society, the Cho, and Galley West wouldn't exist in the form we exist today. So they have a certain percentage of the funds that they have to distribute have to be for historic preservation and culture. So it's an asset, I think, in the team here in Orleans has at least been, from my perspective, has been supportive of this kind of thing. And the third thing, I think, is that we have some facilities here. They just need to be known. I think someone said Orleans is the best kept secret. I think that's true, because people, everybody knows to go to Hyannis to see whatever's there and Chatham. But when they come to Orleans, at least my family and friends, they're so impressed with what we have to offer, but not everybody knows that it's all here. So.
What are the best kept secrets? Top 3.
I would say we own the CG 36500 lifeboat. So I think people, when they come here, they realize it's here, but that's, they don't know it's here.
It's the 3rd most visited site in the community. Nauset, Skagit, and the boat.
Exactly. And I would say the other 2 are Nauset and Skagit.
Culture in Orleans has been an evolving concept since the railroad came here. And so there were large hotels here at one point. They're gone. The history of the town is in part of the culture that goes unrecognized until people visually take in, as I mentioned earlier today, the streetscapes. And you ride around and you understand just how early this part of this town is. That in fact, in 1646, when part of the 7 families came, they came from Plymouth Colony. This is one of the oldest established communities in the United States. And that, once that comes to light, people do have an aha moment. So, that's part of it.
I just realized another place that's a hidden gem that I forgot, which is the community and the Church of Transfiguration. They are grounded in the arts. I mean, I forgot because COVID really has derailed so much of our life here. And the church itself is an extraordinary art creation. There is a theater, there's a world-renowned chorus that travels literally around the world in good days. And I know times when I was either at the gallery on Main Street or at the artist cottages, people didn't know about that site, which is also right at Rock Harbor. And then it's open to the public, there are tours, and it's really absolutely magnificent.
The organ there too.
And the organ, yeah, the music performance that they do and the organ, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say another hidden gem about the town is the lifelong learning program that the Friends of Snow Library put on every year in collaboration with Snow Library. And they offer on the order of 24 courses each fall and each spring that attract thousands of visits, to Snow Library and the Crane Gallery. And they cover a wide range of topics, including many art and cultural, literary, historical topics. It's a very big success.
May I just follow on that also at the library we have the Marion Crane Gallery, which has its own separate committee, the Marion Crane Gallery Committee, which has art exhibits on a monthly basis. They were suspended because of COVID-19, but we're hoping to begin those again in the spring. And so every month there's a completely new exhibit, and most of these exhibits are by emerging artists.
I just wanted to add to the Rock Harbor attraction through the art and programs at the community. They do participate. They just have funded a rehearsal center
which is accessible from Route 6A in Brewster, and that's open to the entire state for marching bands, large groups that need a place to rehearse. The bands used to rehearse at Eldridge Park or the Orleans Elementary School at night with flashlights. So this is a tremendous addition statewide, and I think, you know, Rock Harbor is still attractive to tourists whether the 36,500 is there or not. And I wanted to mention also in Main Street Square, there's an arts cooperative, 17 local artists work in the Coastal Craft Gallery. And I was just there yesterday and it was packed. So it's I think a collaborative like that draws many local artists and provides a venue. They share monitoring the shop and participate in things that are town-wide. I also want to mention the old firehouse on Main Street, pre-COVID, had 15 different groups, over 80 to 100 people using that building every week, with also a gallery with ongoing shows supporting emerging and local artists. And we recently have worked to get approval from the select board to renovate that building, to bring it up to code, and to again make it open to the public. We recently just finished 11 Saturdays from 1 to 2. We offered free music in Parish Park, and nature was great because we had sun every single Saturday with the exception of the cyclone Saturday. And so we're also planning to collaborate with bookstores, and we've written a grant to continue that program next, starting in April through June. And we'll add story hours for children cooperating with local bookstores. And we've already booked a show on the ponds of Cape Cod.
Picking up on hidden gems, having worked on the Scally West Art Gallery and digging into the history of the buildings, which date back to the 1800s, I think we get jaded by going to Europe and you see these buildings that are 1,000 years old and they in of themselves are considered pieces of art. I don't think we're doing enough to emphasize the beauty of what by U.S. standards are some of our oldest buildings. The Federated Church, now Galley West, what I've discovered and learned how it dates back to the old Higgins Tavern and shipwreck buildings. But there are other hidden gems. Now that doesn't mean that they're going to be open, some of them are private homes, but from a cultural standpoint, how can we create a map of pointing out what a lot of towns in the United States don't have? They don't have 300- and 400-year-old buildings that are still standing and in good shape, and what can we do to elevate that to the public as a destination draw.
There used to be in the living room I have, there's a map that has the oldest houses on Main Street, and I don't know if that's still published by who would it be, and of course the other hidden gem is Bonnie Snow.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
how do we not lose that?
Not lose that.
Not
lose
that.
that. I mean, I'm finding this. Church of the Holy Spirit is it's not even 100 years old, but there are parts of that building that were from the 1800s, and even the actual building. And so there's a history that I don't want us to lose that could be woven into the cultural and artistic value that we offer. That if you go to Florence, you're going to see the Duomo and you're going to do all of that, but we don't have that. But we do have the Federated Church. Right. We have antique.
I just want to say that, but what we do have, and we're talking about assets, especially, we have done some work, and Cho has done a lot of work there are plaques all around town now identifying historic buildings. There's the, you know, you can do your fancy technology and get the history on the site, whether the building's still there or not. And I understand that Cho recently did a new version that's online.
It's online.
Yeah, that people
You
can
can push
see.
on a spot on a map. It brings up the house, who lived in it,
Yeah,
et cetera.
which is, I haven't
Right.
seen
And
it.
we also have 70, I don't know if it's on YouTube or you can get it on our website, of videos of historic talks.
Okay.
Lots of them with Bonnie. So there, if you go, we just need to advertise this stuff.
That's
We
it,
need to
that's
let
it.
people
Don't
know
know.
we have it. It's just getting it out
For
to
the visitor to
people.
come in to
Yeah.
help with
To know.
the economy and the development of the economy, make that be a destination.
Yeah, sorry.
I just want to mention, a few years ago, we had a historic markers committee, and the historic markers that you see near Snow Library, it's a 3-panel, particularly Depot Square. And I see people who are walking around and stopping and reading that, and that's the beginning history. And we put 5 markers out. We have a list, which we worked with the Historical Society. Ron Peterson on the local historic commission has all of that information. But placing the historic markers, for example, in front of what was Francis was a Chinese laundry. I mean, these are really interesting little tidbits for visitors. And there was some concern about too many signs, so that committee kind of came to a stop. So there should be some way, a simple little 8x8 plaque or something that would identify, and very easily identify the walkers, the pedestrians, the people who want to sort of connect to the history that you're speaking to. You know, I'm originally from the West Coast, and when I'm here, I feel like I'm walking on the ground. That's where it all started.
Yeah.
Helen,
The Orleans Historic Commission is in the process of bringing forth to the community a proposal to establish an historic district from Main Street to the Barley Neck Inn as a opportunity for the town to celebrate that streetscape and the number of 18th and 19th century buildings that are there is unique to most communities. And so we want to recognize that, and that will go a long ways towards that issue.
Yeah. Was there a comment?
Helen, did you want to say something?
The town really needs a professional marketing plan.
Yeah.
There's a lot of volunteers doing really good work. There's nothing coordinated. The lack of marketing in this town is disgraceful.
Yeah.
Sort of on the, I think in the summer, what we can celebrate is the garden community in this town. Orleans, at the moment, is, I think, the last remaining town to have a large garden tour in the summer. This year, it's 32 years we've run it. We had over 800 people attend a one-day garden tour this year. The Hydrangea Festival, which is a big event and that happens in July, that's coordinated across the Cape, certainly meets that need in the summer, but Orleans is unique in that regard. We have many, many master gardeners and other community gardeners. We have a very active, several active large community gardens in this town that are well supported by the community also.
Well, I wanted to ask a little bit about your audience for all of these different assets, right? We've heard a lot of galleries, and also place co-ops for artists, emerging artists. The library obviously has its programs as well. Who's attending? Who's visiting? What is the profile of the audience currently for the arts and culture here in Orleans?
I just want to start out by building on what Helen said, that in my experience, there are nodes that are active and have an engaged customer, and they can each speak to who that customer is. There's very little cross-pollination happening there is no culture here, in my experience, of people coming out, especially in the evenings, to participate in things like music. Done lots of music organizing for audiences of 0 to 5, and nobody else is there. I don't know where they are. So that's just sort of an overview of how we have successful pockets, but there just isn't a broad cross-reading of them.
I would say that a lot of our people, our visitors, come because it is a place where you can go shopping. It is not necessarily a place where you come for culture. When years ago Todd tried to have the artist cottages be open evenings, trying to draw more people into town and stroll and go, the sidewalks were rolled up, the stores were closed. You know, we're not viewed as a destination for you know, like strolls or unique evenings or that. You know, people like they come, they go to the beach, they might come down into town to do a little bit of shopping, and then they go home and they have their lobsters and their clam chowder and recover from the day of sun, and then the next day repeat it. At least that's my view, especially in the summertime. So I don't know if there's something with, you know, Google searches that what to do in Orleans, if they're the professional development and the professional collaborative information that the outsider could say, oh, let's go to Orleans. We don't have to go to Chatham. We don't have to. Let's go to Orleans. You know, Harwich has overcome it with their strolls. What can we do to get on that bandwagon?
I don't see a representative of the chamber here, but are you here? Oh, good. I think the chamber does a pretty phenomenal job of promoting Orleans, and their, you know, website is lively.
I think they do, but I'm a recent member of the board, and I was just saying, I got on to shake things up like 4 months ago, and all I've done is gone to like 4 meetings. So I'm ready to help connect.
It's time.
There's got to be a connection.
Yeah.
And real quick, I don't know if this is a hidden gem, there might be a semi-precious stone, but we have the French Cable Museum, which is often overlooked, and the Jonathan Young
Windmill.
The Jonathan Young windmill is the oldest windmill in Massachusetts and one of the oldest in New England, and it has all it's rare, it has all its working parts. So it's sitting down there, and I often get a sandwich and just go down there and go, we've got this thing right on the cove. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
But Joanne, you can talk to me anytime, because I'm ready to move and shake. And let me say one more thing real quick. When I used to talk to, what's his name that used to
Sounds
We're
like
all in the
We'll
same
come back
boat.
Anyway, when the
It's long
movie theater was
COVID.
there was a lot of activity
Yeah.
in the evenings.
Yeah.
We have a stroll one Wednesday a summer.
Yeah.
Nobody hears me. You could block off that same amount and do it every week. And people would come because it was there. You wouldn't have to have all the fire equipment and everything. You could have the popcorn machine and things, and maybe businesses would stay open. But for me, that's an easy thing. Block off that road at Main Street, block it off at Brewster Cross Road, and open it up to the public every Wednesday night in the summer, and people would come.
And
It would
have
take the
music,
place of the
yeah.
Harwich Stroll.
that's what I want us to do.
You know,
Yeah.
anybody ever been to Palm Springs, California?
Yeah.
They block off their whole thing, and restaurants thought that people would just eat street food. But they enhance each other. Some people eat street food, some people go in the restaurants. They block it off with those cement things that come up out of the ground, so
Bollards.
cars can't go, yeah. We could do that, I mean, that's one idea.
There are two groups within the audience that participate. One group has exceptional discretionary income, and one group, to the point just made, needs opportunities to come, that things that are free of charge, to wander, to stroll, to look, to engage. And so our galleries appeal to the demographic who lives here and in the surrounding communities. And we have very little on a regular basis to draw others.
To that point, the ball games in the summer, because that's.
The ball games, terrific.
That's free, free parking, free.
Yep.
They walk the field, the ball players do, you can contribute, but the ball game is free. And in the old days, and Ellen should talk more about this than I, but once, and when did it stop? But we used to have the symphony come at the end of August,
Right.
so talk about that.
Yeah, we did Pops in the Park, and we were funded by the Arts Foundation. It cost a lot of money to produce that show. We have 67 members of our orchestra, and we're a union orchestra, so we are constrained by price. We have to put up a tent. And it requires a lot of volunteers and money. Just to produce that show is about $40,000 to $50,000. So when the funding was pulled, we could no longer present the show. We had trouble getting volunteers to help as well. And we would love to come back. We want to become part of all of the communities. We have an excellent education programs, musical education and art education programs that we want to bring to the community. We have small groups within the orchestra who perform. One of them that you may have heard of is called Quartet Giacosa, 4 of our women string players. They're wonderful. They've performed at the Orleans Federated Church. They performed in the park this summer as part of the experience. And there's no place big enough here for us. There's no place big enough all over the Cape except for the Barnstable Performing Arts Center. We have it holds 1,400 people. And we are, before COVID, we're 91% full on average for the year. We have 6 masterpiece concerts and about 6 pop concerts. So we have a mixed bag of people coming in. And we want to figure out a way that we can reinstate this concert and get the funding back for it, because it was a fun thing. As a resident,
Who was the key funder for you?
It was the Chamber of Commerce and they gave it up.
Yes,
Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah.
They decided it was too much work.
And it is.
It is, yeah.
And it is.
Well, it's not too much, it is a lot of work, but it needs to be embraced by the community. I mean, that's, opportunities there.
Yeah.
So just to kind of comment on the music scene in town. So a shout out to the Nauset Beach concerts on Monday during the summer. Those are great, but they're very limited in terms of, there's 8 of them, and they happen, and hopefully the weather is good, right? The Village Green is an underused resource for concerts. It's occasionally used there, and one of the problems there is the stage is too small, and there's no covering for who the artist might be if the weather is a little iffy and stuff. And then I'd say another gem, and I'm not sure it's actually in the cultural district or not, in terms of live music, is the Hog Island, the brewery. It's a great venue for music, and it has an outdoor area. The way the indoors and outdoors bleed, it's a very popular site where a lot of people go in the summer. Every evening, I would say.
I just wanted, a few years ago, I worked at a motel in Chatham, but the one question people would always say is, what can we do while we're here? And I always thought it would be great to put a little tours of different sizes together, like for a half hour you could do this, or a 2-hour tour you can take you to the marsh. But people, when they get somewhere, they don't know where to go. Especially here where we're not a city, a centralized thing, and they get here and they say, okay, what do we do? So somehow if it could be an animated, dynamic brochure or big thing in town with different options, people need direction, I think, especially when it's so spread out.
Yeah, I think there was a comment here. Yeah.
I was just going to say, from a music program, we started this year for the first time a considerable number of music programs at the show, and they were the best attended. So there is interest out there. People want to have these music programs, and our venue is excellent for it. It's big enough, it has a stage, and it was successful.
In the music program's audience, who is that?
It was a local people, it was visitors, it was mostly, our demographic is mostly older. We brought in some rock bands, believe it or not, and that brought in younger people. Yeah, so
How many people attended that? Just an average?
I think the rock band, there was a series of them, and I think it was about 30, 40 people.
Yeah, was that pre-COVID or?
No,
this summer. We also brought in the a cappella groups, the Hyannis Sound, and they drew people as well.
Yeah, so the average was around 40?
Yeah, 30, between 30 and 40.
Yeah, we had 40 up 40.
I think in caps, the word communication should be added to the list on the board there. Because that's what it sounds like is missing here.
Communication between all of the organizations that currently are doing the best that they can in individual ways to move the cultural scene forward.
But it isn't just communication, it's the marketing plan, like Helen said.
Helen said, we need a marketing
We really
plan.
need something.
A coordinated marketing.
Yes, that
This is
incentivizes people to come.
What we need too is, Barnstable, we were looking at models for economic development, and Barnstable has within their economic development department, which we don't have that. They have an arts and culture coordinator. And we can go pie in the sky here, that the idea of a person who is responsible for supporting the arts and culture community and marketing it would be awesome.
Yeah.
What's really hard is that it's nobody's job to do it.
Right.
And everybody is understaffed and overworked, so it just doesn't get done.
This is a completely different note, but I wonder about all the young families that are still hanging in here and have school children in town. What is there to offer them at this point? There's no community gathering place for kids after school. You see a lot of kids hanging out in the CVS parking lot, and that's okay, but I think we could possibly have something for these young children, teenagers.
They're hanging out at the CVS parking lot as a choice.
Right.
There's an after-school program at the old firehouse 5 days a week. It's been in effect for way before COVID arrived and messed everything up. I think that they're trying to build up their numbers, and I think the kids basically have been looking at screens for 2 years, and they just love being out with each other.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking for years.
But
there hasn't been much
there were programs
for teenagers.
Yeah, there were programs after school.
Okay.
Yeah, teenagers.
And we also have a community task force that was just formed by the town, and they had their first meeting last week, and their charge is to look at everything that's available in Orleans and try to pull that together and provide a recommendation.
Community center.
Community center,
Community center, or a partnership with Brewster, or perhaps it's going to be something that someone that coordinates the various satellite things that are going on. So parents can just go to one place and find out what the choices are.
Right, or, you know, community dances with kids, you know, teenagers, whatever it is, they have no place really to go for an extended period of time.
I just want to get one thing before we wind down, make sure it gets in there. The town, I believe, is at a cusp of physical development and its architecture, and I'm going to go really pie in the sky, because one thing we haven't touched that much on is performing arts. I know we talked about music. We have a theater that sort of, and the other theater that I would embrace is actually in Brewster, but it's pretty close. But there is no theater, no really good theater. Efforts have been made to work with the middle school to use that theater, none of which has come, you know, to any permanent fruition. I'd like to see, my dream is a community center for Orleans that would serve especially Brewster and East Ham primarily. That would include, you know, art space, some connected theater space or nearby theater space. We've talked about a movie theater, but I've actually done a little deep diving with people about that movie theater concept, bringing that back and trying to create more of a flexible theater space, so it's not just a movie theater, but can be used for other kinds of performance. Looking at gaps in the Cape for performance. There is no dance venue. I take that back. There is a small venue that's working in Provincetown, but that's far away from us. But there's no dance venue. We could become the magnet for some dance performance on the Cape if we had a suitable facility. So that's the dream, because obviously that's high expense to actually build something suitable, but we'd be the only one on the Cape. And the idea of looking to filling some cultural gap that could work with the symphony would be the same kind of large space. You know, actually planning for Orleans to have a magnet, an arts and culture magnet, that could draw audience from really the entire Cape, but it's on a day-to-day basis from the surrounding towns.
Yeah.
I think would be great.
And was there a location yet for the community center? So
No, that's part of what they're going to look at.
Got it.
So just to kind of follow on to that comment about pie in the sky and the challenges associated with physical infrastructure and stuff, because I know Orleans has a lot going on right now in terms of ambitions as it relates to housing, the community center. It looks like another firehouse is coming down the pike. But speaking from the library perspective, which I would argue is a community center right now, acts that way, we have a failing building that requires either significant renovation or kind of a tear down, rebuild, so to speak, that, you know, is probably, you know, a $20 or $30 million project. But to think about it outside the box in combination with a community center or a performance arts center, I've had this vision for a long time or since I've been involved here, with the current site and the Village Green, you could really create a new library and performance center, so to speak, even an outdoor performance center in that entire area. But be that aside, that's why we need a really coherent planning process. You know, as opposed to these one-offs, you know, that, you know.
We don't have a master plan.
Right.
Which a master plan is an architectural master plan, not a, you know, it's focused on the physical, right, environment, how we create nodes of development and activity that interconnect. We do not have that.
I'd make one other unrelated comment. You know, we talked about walking around town. I would make the case it's not that easy to walk around this town. Right. You know, you can walk along Main Street, you know, from, you know, Tim's shop, you know, down to the library. You know, that's an okay walk. But, you know, once you venture off that, you know, good luck, you know. So that's a real challenge.
I'm going to second that. There are sections of sidewalk that need to be finished so that you can do that.
Yes. Are you involved with the community center task force?
Not directly, no.
Could I just add an asset that hasn't been spoken about, and that's the skating rink that Charles Moore which is part of the culture for a lot of young people. So just add that to the mix along with our skateboard park.
Where's the skateboard?
Yeah. Eldridge
An Eldridge
Parkway,
Parkway.
you can see it as you go by the middle
Station.
school field.
Got it.
Just got expanded.
So I want to make sure we move on to talking about some of the challenges. We've heard obviously the biggest one being a coordinated promotion and marketing strategy of some kind to speak to everything that everyone's doing in the field of arts and culture, but also in business activity in the town. That seems to be, obviously one challenge is there's not one current town-wide marketing plan. The second being just coordination and collaboration across different nodes and areas of activity. There's not really a formal opportunity or venue for folks to be collaborating in a lot of ways. So beyond those two things and not having an evening presence or destination of some kind, what else is the challenge in doing the work that you're doing as artists, as leaders of nonprofit organizations in the arts and culture here? I mean, funding, I think, appears to be an issue. We heard from the symphony and then but I think obviously Cho has great funding relationships with CPC, I believe, right? Other organizations and folks that are doing work here, yeah.
Just an overriding comment I'd make. I've been coming to the Cape since 1970. We've been living here full-time since the early 90s. And sitting here and listening to everybody talk, I've learned more about what's going on in Orleans in the last 2 hours since I've lived here. And I would speak to the point of communication. I think Helen called it advertising before. I don't think Orleans does a good job in just representing itself to anybody that comes here in any modality. You arrive here primarily because you're going to the beach. That's the hidden secret of the hidden gem of our community, Nauset Beach. Everybody knows it. But once you get past that, how does Orleans really advertise or communicate itself as an entity to visit, and then everything that includes? Whether it be we need a big hotel or whatever it is. I mean, just think out of the box. And I don't think we do that. I think we constantly go around and say, what is Main Street like? What are the beaches like? Do we really think out of the box and say, what can we really creatively do with our community to sell it better, number one, or to make it better outside of the parameters of everything that we've boxed ourselves into? And I think that would lead us down a different path.
No, I was just thinking maybe you just need a good marketing and trademark plan. Just call yourself the cultural center of Cape Cod.
We have enough of that.
Of the lower Cape.
I know you're going to move on, but I really believe the thing about communication and cooperation. Things have been tried. Clambacue was tried. That went Clambacue. It was like a barbecue clam thing. That went a couple of times and then that faded away. Surf movie and thing that went a couple times. So instead of competing with each event, they should be coordinated together somehow. So I know you want to move on, but I really think communication and cooperation between everybody. And it goes with people saying, okay, yes, you can do this. I told you on the break, we couldn't get outdoor seating in restaurants until COVID.
Right.
Now we're outside, so all of a sudden we can have it.
But we need to make sure we don't lose it.
We don't
Yeah, we
lose
need
it
to
at
make sure we
the
don't
center.
lose it. And things like that,
Yeah.
that you have to coordinate together.
In your surveying of this, in this process, what I want to know about is, 'cause to me, there's
Like
this
the Beatles.
culture
Okay?
within the community of staying at home.
Yeah.
At one time, I was involved with a group, and we were talking about doing the design of the intersections that happened recently, and making sure we had nice lighting set up and all that. And at the end of the meeting, I walked out of there with a gentleman who said to me, "Why do we need to buy fancy lighting? You know, nobody's here after dark anyway." I was like, you know, that's kind of the point. But there's a large group of the population that doesn't really think there's anything wrong with Main Street going dark, that thinks we have lots of restaurants. We do not have lots of restaurants. We don't have a sense of life in the streets. And I want to know from the population in general, those who are coming to these focus groups, it's a self-identified, group of people who have a different perspective. But those people, I want to know from them, like, how come when there's free music all over town and food trucks where you could buy dinner, you don't come? Like, why?
Well, or if not music, then what else?
Yeah,
So,
something.
what's the side of the building that you could put a family movie on? Again, seasonally, and change so that it's not just music or this music or that music, but something else, so that
Right.
there's different types of appeals to appeal to
Right.
a variety of people, to get them off the couch and back into town.
Right, right.
We're all people very entrenched here, and I just had a thought. What if we reached out to some of these, like the Del Mar and the Pretty Picky Rentals? These are companies that are attracting families here in the summer, rentals, and asking them to survey their clients as to what's missing in Orleans for you when you are renting here. I know as growing up, we used to spend, it used to take us 18 hours to get from Bergen County, New Jersey to Orleans, but we did it. And they said, well, what would you do when you got there? There was nothing to do. I said, you made your own fun. A lot of people don't want to make their own fun. They want to be entertained. So we've got all of these things going on. So two things. Survey people, let's get information from the people that do choose to come here and help our economy with their money. But secondly, that what Addison was saying, Helen was saying, if we had a central repository where there is somebody or a group of people, they are paid employees, and we are feeding all of this to them, and then they are paid to analyze and figure out how to slice and dice and have what's happening in Orleans today, and you can just go there and you can say, oh, I want to go here, here, and here. Make it easy for residents and for visitors to find what's happening today or the next week or whatever. But it gets back to that whole communication, but let's get some other information than just our insular group of people. Let's go out.
Maybe the new town website can help us.
Yeah.
Well, question related to, reaching out to others
The
beyond this
current one,
community.
oh,
Are there
no.
any organizations that are currently working with, what is the regional destination marketing organization for the Cape? I believe maybe Cape Cod Chamber.
The Chamber of Commerce the local Chamber of Commerce is connected to the Cape Cod Chamber. And the Cape Cod Chamber does the regional marketing.
Regional marketing, okay. So they do communicate with each other, the chamber and the Cape Cod Chamber. Okay, and then with the state, with Massachusetts Office of Travel, Tourism, Visit, MA, has there been any communication between the town or organizations in the town with, is it Massachusetts?
They really work through the Cape Cod Chamber. The Cape Cod Chamber is a bigger chamber entity than you might expect they've really taken on the marketing of the Cape for the tourism industry, as well as representing other businesses, but that is their key role.
And do we feel that the local chamber is doing enough to get the word of Orleans to the Cape Cod Chamber in order to funnel through, you know, there's obviously larger players in the marketing and advertising game in tourism in the Commonwealth. They have, you know, the network, they have the platforms that are already available. There's really no point in creating a new one if we can feed into larger ones. So I want to understand if that's the opportunity we should be leveraging moving forward.
Yes.
One point with regard to the chamber. The Provincetown Chamber of Commerce gets big, real money to do stuff as part of their budget from the town. And our chamber gets rinky-dink, pocket change, like.
And the issue there too is that it's a membership organization.
Right.
So it doesn't view its role necessarily or primarily as representing the town. It represents its membership. That could change if the town contributed more money. The other group, the obvious entity you're looking for regional players, is the Arts Foundation of Cape Cod. And there is a marketing site for events. It can be sorted by town. Since I moved back here, I have not seen that much of a connection deliberately made between the Arts Foundation and the towns. But that may just be because I'm outside what's going on right now. But I'm sure if the town reached out to the Arts Foundation, there could be opportunities to market more directly and in a bigger way.
Yes.
To the previous speaker's point, people don't want to volunteer anymore. And the way to get this done is money, M-O-N-E-Y. And really, I think the word needs to get back to our select people that money is required so that communication occurs in this town, because there are many things that I've heard in the last, and I've been late, that I didn't know existed in Orleans, and I'm pretty well involved here. The other thing that hasn't been mentioned is the town is getting a new sewer system, which will probably result in more restaurants reopening, or certain restaurants that have not been operating for years because there are no sewers, will probably go back into operation or be sold and be renovated and go back into operation. So one of the problems that we have, frankly, is at night, as this lady said right here, they pull up the sidewalks. And it's not conducive to walking. Orleans is not conducive to walking. As opposed to, I shouldn't say this, Chatham is.
It's a straight line in Chatham.
There was a comment.
I was just going to say that Orleans is people move here for quality of life. The quality of life includes culture, but it also includes conservation areas. It includes a sense of anonymity. This is one of the most anonymous communities that you would ever live in. And to break down that anonymity, I can tell you, the closer you are to where the Pilgrims landed, the more parochial this place becomes. That's the challenge.
Be careful what you ask for.
I don't know,
I know.
this is kind of a side and it's nothing we can really solve, but I was driving through town the other day, and I don't know if you've ever noticed, the CVS on Main Street is the ugliest facade with windows with just paper in them. And it would be so cool if somehow it could be an interactive wall, you know, with things going on, and it would just,
the movie theater again.
where the movie theater was, but make it so that there were things could be highlighted, a mural of the town, light up, I don't know, but it's a great space that's not being used nicely.
Just to follow up on that point, one of my pet peeves is why are there two CVS's in Orleans? And that space that she just referred to is kind of a central, what a location that is. around it are all sorts of very interesting things, right? So it's a
could be so
huge
cool.
opportunity, and couldn't the town work with CVS to figure out how they can expand their site over in the Skakit Corners, so they'd have a superstore there, you know? We could pay to move the photo shop down to where the Hallmark card was, you know, they could expand the space, whatever, and free up.
Just give us the wall.
Well, I want the space too, I don't want just the wall. That's corner space, it's a land, right, exactly, it's a landmark space.
Yeah, it's your 100% corner is what we call it.
Yeah, exactly, and, you know, that, and with the gas station across the street, I don't know, you know, there seems to me, those are lost opportunities that would be great to regain somehow.
Well, the restaurant at the corner, Skaka Corner, was supposed to be, they picked out, what was it?
Yeah, I know, it was gonna be the bigger CVS,
The bigger
I
CVS, and that
understand.
got all knocked down, and that building has sat there empty now for 5 years, we still have the 2 CVSs, but, you know,
No, I
that's, the
understand, but-
development and planning board needs to figure out what's.
Yeah,
I just think we
just
have
a
to
comment here first.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on something about the sidewalks closing up at night. And one of the reasons there's no activity, and I can speak for a lot of my friends, they don't want to drive after dark. They're afraid to go out because they're afraid of an accident. So if we could transport people
What a good
somehow
idea.
downtown, we might have an opportunity to open up the cultural center in a more positive way.
My out-of-the-box dream is to convert the CBS that we've been talking about to a legitimate theater or a movie theater, just as they did in Chatham.
Yeah.
This is where my wife and I go when we go to the movies. We go to Chatham all the time.
Right.
And it's convenient, and there are restaurants there, and it would be a fantastic thing. But it's gonna take time and money. And going back to Skakit Corners, one thing that this town does not know how to do is ask. To say to CBS, I don't like what you're doing, do something different, or tell them what you want done, and then it never happens.
Well, wait,
Oh, no,
I just
we
want
did
to say
that,
something
and they-
on that
and they
point.
said
It's a
goodbye.
little off the side. I was on the Architectural Review Committee. I was a voice that did tell them what we would accept, that what would work on that corner, and they said, no, we're going to withdraw.
That's right.
And believe me, people, you would not have wanted what they wanted.
Yeah, and George is not here to
Yeah.
speak for himself, but as we were doing our site visit yesterday, obviously we noticed the lack of care to the building compared to a lot of other properties right on your main street. He did share that he has tried to reach out to property owners, to the tenants in multiple ways, and it's not for the lack of communication and trying to get a hold of the right person, but with a national chain it does get very challenging getting to the very tippy top of the right person that has control over the property. So I just want to let you know that, you know, it's definitely an ongoing conversation. George is definitely putting in the effort to speak with the right people there. So I think there was one comment. No?
I was at that meeting, that particular meeting, and I think we owe the Architecture Review Committee 1,000 roses every day, because that property is owned by bankers in Hingham who showed up at the very last meeting. And that was a big revelation. They just wanted to have a national chain in there. And I think we're indebted. We may not have something there right now, but what we could have
Yeah, we're gonna get
happened would have
Starbucks.
been terrible. So just a little kudos to your group.
So maybe with dealing with a national chain, money talks, and if you make it an economic advantage for them, it would be an investment for our future to convert that corner into a pivotal destination that would feed all north, south, east, and west.
Yeah.
I'm sure a national chain would listen for money, but
We
don't have
looked
a
at the
lot.
look at the other corner too.
Yeah.
So we brainstormed master plans. On the other side of the street, there's a big blank wall. We had the idea, you had an interactive mural we were thinking, or mosaic that could be designed and made by locals that would identify important sites, so it itself could become a destination, and then that would provide information to feed out to others, to visitors rather.
Was there someone else here? Oh. Okay, so we're wrapping up on time here. I want to be respectful of your time with us today. This last sort of big question to all of you is really, what is the number one priority? As we're looking at this as from the arts and cultural standpoint. The business owners shared regulatory processes for them was a key priority because there's a lot of things in regulations and permitting processes that do impede business expansion, business innovation, and trying out new things. So I want to hear from the nonprofit cultural groups here in town. What is your number one priority that you'd like to see move forward in town that will really help to alleviate the challenges that you have? And I think I know in my head what that number one is, but I would love to hear from you.
A collective marketing program.
An
Got it.
Collective coordinated.
Coordinated markets.
Perfect. Okay, so is there anyone that might defer to that, opinion from that? Yes.
Yeah, I'm very parochial about this. I think the number one priority from my perspective is a strategy to revitalize Snow Library.
Library renovation. Got it.
Yeah, great.
As a cultural center. Okay, great. So I want to thank everyone for being here this morning. I know 90 minutes of your time is a lot. So I do really appreciate your voice and your opinion, and please know that all the notes have been taken down today, and they will be summarized and shared out with the planning board. And if you're curious about the notes, I'm sure George is the right person for you to reach out to if you want a copy of them. And I also want to share that all of the meetings will be recorded and will be uploaded on the town's website. So if you know of other organizations or individuals who are interested in any of the 4 topics that we have discussed today, please let them know that it will be available online for them to view. And if they have any additional feedback, or if you didn't feel comfortable sharing something in the room today that you think is really important for us to hear, my email, you can get a card from me if you want to reach out to me by email, or if you have George's email. George is also the right person for you to get in touch with. And Joe, I think you RSVP'd to him for the meeting. You have his email, so contact any one of the 3 of us and we'll be able to reach back out and make sure that it's recorded. So thank you everyone for being here.